Apart from the fact that life is essentially unsure and unpredictable, it is full of surprises and is not at all easy. You can never be sure what lies ahead. Living in the moment is something you should always remember. Avoid dwelling too much on the past or the future. Everything that is required will ultimately take place. Nothing is ever worth taking for granted, especially the people you love. 30 years later, after having watched his mother bury something in the garden, he finds out what it is and can't stop crying. But before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. 5-year-old Maxim grew up in a typical home much like any other. They lacked wealth. Conversely, his parents' employment were jobs they detested, but they kept them afloat and allowed them to raise their kid to a respectable standard of living despite their small amounts of debt to the banks. They experienced the same small and great agonies, the same crossroads that everyone else experienced day by day, and as a result, life was passing them by as they tried to survive, leaving them with little time for anything other than to keep trying to maintain. Even at a young age, Maximum understood that his parents weren't content, and despite their everyday problems, they had enjoyed some joyful times together. Apart from his boundless purity as a child, he believed that happiness was the only thing that everyone required until he saw an abandoned kitten close to his home. A companion, the youngster had always wanted a kitten, so when he discovered one so nearby and without a home, he didn't think twice about bringing it home. His parents were surprised with blankets and a box when they got home from work. Maxim had already made a makeshift home for his new pet and was hoping for a positive response from both his parents and himself. His parents' expressions, though, were emotionless. They just said something hastily to get away from their son, and when they came back, they informed him that they weren't going to clean up after the cat, so if he wanted to keep her, he would have to take full responsibility for her. Maxim felt bad for his parents since they denied themselves the chance to adore a noble creature like this cat, even though he didn't know what to feel at the time. Nevertheless, he vowed to take care of her. She had to work hard to win the hearts of two people who had forced one another to live a life of emotional suppression, but Sally had done it at last. They now cuddle with her and chat to her in a loving manner whenever she is around. Magnum was relieved that his parents had at last given in to her. He knew it would be very beneficial to them. As Sally became a member of the family, Maxim's parents started to treat her similarly. She was the life of the party every time they arrived, and for the first time you could see that they were a happy family in spite of everything. The gentleness and unwavering affection of Sarah was gradually relieving their hearts of burdens. However, she had not yet spent a year with the family. Sally started to exercise and eat less when she got sick, and eventually she stopped eating completely. Maxim's parents instructed him to do whatever it necessary not to worry about the expense in order to save the cat from dying when they took her to the clinic, but all the other diagnoses were superfluous because of the initial one. Sally was about to die from a brain tumor. When they came back, they could not tell everyone the whole truth. They only informed him that the cat could only get better residing in the open rescue shelter and that she was dealing with stress and melancholy. And although it was really painful for them to split from her, it was preferable to bring him and his family to a rescue shelter where they could take care of him while she recovered. Maxim accepted them as true. He bid Sally farewell. They weren't crying though, because Sally was actually going to the vet that day instead of the farm to get the shot that would finally put an end to her excruciating torment. They sobbed because their son was unable to learn the truth without it shattering his heart into a million pieces. Just 1 week after that incident, Maxim was already pressuring his parents to see Sally. They came up with a variety of reasons not to go for several weeks until they ran out of things to say to him. Then they contacted a friend to come see his land so they could tell him a falsehood. When the boy arrived, they had to let him know that Sally had run away, and they had no idea where she was. Upon learning of his cat's escape, the child initially assumed she was attempting to find her way back home. He hurried back to get his parents since he thought Sally would be waiting for them. Though they were unable to tell them the truth, Maxim's parents were filled with immense grief and remorse for the manner they were misleading their son. After growing up, Maxim established his life, his house, and his son. Though he had plenty to consider, he never forgot Sally. 30 years after he'd last seen his cherished pet cat, he remembered something one day that he'd never given much thought to before: his mother using a shovel to dig a hole in the garden, then covering it up again so no one would know what she'd put there. At the time, he had assumed she was planting a plant and had not given it any significance. Since his mother had passed away years earlier, he realized right away that Maxim had solved the puzzle and allowed him to action on his own judgment. Maxim dug into the location he remembered without hesitation, and soon he discovered the wooden box that contained Sally's bones. Even though so much time had passed, Maximum sat down beside the bones and sobbed, the way he would have cried if he had known then. He sobbed there for so long that his father was forced to come out and face the reality that he and his wife had avoided for so long. To his astonishment, though, Maxim was not upset with him. He informed his father that although he was sorry to learn about it so long after it had happened, he understood their motivations for keeping the truth hidden. With a resolve to grant his son the pet he had begged for so much, he eventually said goodbye to Sally, buried her once more, gave his father a hug, and left for home. Another startling revelation in the garden came when Russian national Lucas Dmitry, who owned Dmitry's summer property in Bush-Kungai, unearthed some hidden treasure from the Second World War at his summer cottage. The metal chest that was buried on his property can be explained by the fact that Kyrgyzstan was formerly a part of Soviet Russia. You must have thought the box was only a rock when Dmitry's shovel first struck it. However, after further investigation, the magnificent treasure trove was discovered. Not too long later, he began excavating a cesspool for his backyard latrine. When the shovel struck something metallic, it revealed itself to be a Third Reich Army field blocker. He raised the box to the surface. Opened, the box has been exposed to light, utilizing the available resources. The box's contents seemed to be the 1944 to 1945 baggage packets that had been lying on the ground for at least 60 years. A rubber seal provided tight insulation on the box lid. Additionally, there were certain chemical granules that had a virtually maintained odor, dispersed amidst the items, most likely to protect them from monks. The jacket of a Wehrmacht officer in perfect condition was found at the bottom of the box. A doctor is represented by the catechism sign, which is two snakes twisted around the stick of Hermes. Both Oberst rebels, Master Sergeant and Hupen captains wore the blue line around the collar's epaulet, which represents the war and farb above the medical branch of the here 2 stars on the appetite, but in different designs. The design of the epaulet, a metal badge and a replacement military patch were discovered in the jacket's pockets. Winter headgear, soldier's hat with rank insignia. It is thought that both this and the blue card are military IDs. Along with military passports, Reichsmarks, German money from 1924, were also utilized to pass checkpoints. Meet one currency with a nominal value of 5 break marks. A box of cigars and 2 bottles of rum are required to pass frontline checks.